Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Beauty Beneath podcast. This is the place where we talk about different tips and tricks to growing your business and insights into the beauty industry. I'm your host, Andrea, and today we're going to be talking about a very important topic: how to grow a resilient brand in today's competitive market. I'm so excited to be introducing Amy Mallon today. She is a powerhouse with a wealth of knowledge and experience in the beauty industry. She is the VP of Brand Development and Medical Education at Rescue MD, and she's coming to share with us her expertise and her experience in this industry. Together, we're going to uncover what it takes to survive and thrive in today's competitive market. So without further ado, Amy, welcome to Beauty Beneath.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to be talking to you. Before we get started, can you share a little bit about your background within this industry and just let us get to know you a little bit?
Absolutely. Again, I'm Amy. Hello. So my love of beauty, in truth, really began as a child, thumbing through my grandmother's makeup drawer. And I think so many of us have experienced this.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. They always have the best stuff, right? So my grandmother was actually an old Hollywood movie actress.
Wow.
And when I would go visit her house, I know, cool, right? I would
Very.
go visit her house. She would have just so many bright colored eyeshadows and blushes. And she was just so glamorous. And so I was so enamored with her and this lifestyle that she formerly had that, I knew that makeup and cosmetics were going to be a part of my life somehow. So that combined with, um, a love of ingredients. I'm obsessed with how things work and what is in them. That combination really is kind of what led me to be who I am today. So, fast forward to college, Amy. I actually, during college, was, attending classes, doing my extracurriculars. And at the same time, I actually was freelancing makeup artistry for different photo shoots, runway shows, just getting my hands on people, and loved beauty. And the funny thing is that when I talked to my parents about it, they were like, no, no, no. This is not a feasible way to have an income. There's no way that you're going to ever have a career in this. This is not, an attainable thing. And so, I kind of like pursued other things. I actually started college as a music major. I was an opera major for a little while. That
Opera
also,
major. Wow.
yeah,
That is
that
very
also
cool.
Thank you. Yeah. That also was not a sustainable career. So, I kind of shifted to communications. And then after college, I was like, okay, there are three career paths that I really could envision myself doing. I fully wholeheartedly believe in altruism as a way of life. I think that altruism is probably the driving factor behind a lot of the things that I do. I just want to help people, I want them to be their best. And so I was already at the time doing a lot with nonprofit, doing fundraising and development work. And so that was kind of like one pillar where I was like, I could do this. Then I, of course, was so interested in a holistic and integrative medicine way of life. So I was like, maybe I should be a naturopathic doctor.
Wow.
And then my third choice was, beauty, because this was like still up high in the sky dream of mine. And so I decided to pursue aesthetics. It required kind of like the least amount of education of the three, because if I was going nonprofit, I was going to be an executive director, of course.
Of course.
And so, and so after, working in nonprofit, I did sales for AT&T for a while. I finally jumped into a night program for aesthetics, and I decided to make my hobby my job. And during that time, it was just crazy, right? Like I worked 8 to 5, and then I went to school from 5 to 10 for about a year or so. And after that point, I let go of kind of my day job and I hopped into the treatment room. And so I worked in various facilities, medical spas. I worked for a couple of different physicians. I worked for a salon spa. It was just so interesting to learn in those environments because I can remember even working in the medical spa and someone I have freckles naturally and someone saying, "Oh, you can't be in here with those freckles. What type of pigmentation?" So it was kind of like learning on the fly as I went. Um, and then I ended up working for Four Seasons and loved it. I kind of like straddled um like registration for them and then also worked in the treatment room. So yes, I was very fortunate to work for the Four Seasons Corporation. Beautiful luxury resorts. I learned what it's like to cater to the luxury population,
Yes,
which was
yes.
not my favorite part of the job, but the actual services, treatments, products were so incredible. And what I learned in that role is that I was good at sales. And so I said, maybe I should try out a career in aesthetic sales. Well, I found a brand to work for. I started in sales. I actually had a massive sales territory. So I am Denver based, and my sales territory was actually 9 states in the Northeast.
Oh my God.
So I, as a young woman, was traveling by myself all the time, going to the middle of nowhere in upstate New York, in Pennsylvania.
Oh my
I
goodness.
remember there were several times where I got stuck in Amish territory, like behind a horse and buggy, and
Oh
I'd
my
be calling my mom on my cell phone, like, "Mom, you're not going to believe this." But I'm 2 hours late for my meeting because I'm stuck behind a horse and carriage. It was just crazy.
Wow.
So I did that role for about a year and then realized that I fell in love with helping people have these kind of aha moments in an educational capacity. I was addicted to explaining product and helping them to kind of like realize the vision of the brand that they were working with. So, I took on a role at the time I was with a brand called Glow. They're now called Glow Skin Beauty. But I took on a role as national makeup artist and educator for them.
Mhm.
I was the first person that did both. So at the time, it was kind of cuckoo crazy, but the majority of their business is a makeup line.
Mhm.
They also have a skincare line called Glow Therapeutics at the time, which also had chemical peels. So I was like the main makeup artist, chemical peel trainer. They also had a wax line that they were distributing at the
Wow.
time. So I was doing wax demos. And then we also dabbled in hair care for a little bit. There was a lot happening there. So I was with the brand for quite a while. It was a very high travel position. I was gone like 90% of the time. I had my feet in the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans in the same week. I
Oh my
always joke that I know.
oh my gosh.
I always joke that, I just had no circadian rhythms at the
Mm.
time because I just woke up and was somewhere
Yes.
um and ready to go. And so, that honestly, that job got a little overwhelming with even with my lack of personal life. And so I decided to take a step back. And the day that I put my notice in, a friend that I had worked with previously, who had been a regional sales director, told me, "Hey, I'm starting with this new brand. I have the perfect job for you. You'd be a great candidate for this. And so I think this is the role for you." And so I started as the director of education for a brand called Osmosis Beauty. really amazing brand. So, they have a full skincare line, they have a wellness supplement line, they have a makeup line, they had devices and modalities. So, basically, my job was, to be the expert on all of these things, to kind of take some of the scientific information that was coming from the physician that started the brand, who had the office next to mine, and make it a little bit more approachable and downloadable for beauty professionals, and then also for consumers. Heading like clinical trials if we were doing those, working with product development, lots and lots of social media. I was doing makeup artistry at the time, overseeing the education team. So I had a team of people under me as well, um, and we would travel and train. And so we would travel and train the world and handle global education as well, both from an e learning standpoint and in person. So lots happening there. And yes, I was very, very busy.
I'm
And then
thinking, like, how is, like, global training less overwhelming than what you were doing before?
uh, yeah, it
It
wasn't. It's
wasn't.
just
I can imagine it wasn't.
that's the thing about your career. You grow and you evolve into these different roles, and they all kind of provide you with different and unique challenges,
Yes,
absolutely, on a day-to-day basis.
for sure.
Um, so the ironic thing, and I'm sure you can probably relate to this, is that during this time when I wish it was timed differently. I think about this all the time, but during this time when you are growing and evolving as an employee and as a person, and you're learning your career and you're moving forward and you're excelling, um, that's also a time when, in a lot of cases, those are your child rearing years. So you're also, meeting, your partner and having children. And so all of those things certainly kind of aligned for me during that time. So yeah, I've often kind of had this thought process about, this intersection of life that you're in as a young woman and a young professional. And it frustrates me that the time when you're growing and evolving your career is also the same time that you're in your child rearing years. And so, it's kind of an uphill battle that I think, unfortunately, women and parents, I mean, dads definitely go through this too, but, you kind of have to realize where you're able to dedicate the majority of your time. So I left osmosis, and there was kind of like a brief stint with another brand called Hey Honey Skincare. They were predominantly a retail brand. We were talking about going into QVC at the time. I was their director of communication and education for a short period of time. And then I missed my osmosis family. And so I went back to that brand,
Oh,
for a little while, but my position was no longer available. So, I took the role as marketing manager for them. I also did some global education stuff. But basically, I've done just about everything in the
yeah.
beauty space that there
Sounds
is.
like it.
Um, and then, during that time, again decided to kind of take a step back, and that step back lasted approximately 3 months because I love working. I'm really not good at being home, it turns out, not doing anything. So I ended up taking a role, with Jane Iredale. If you're not familiar with Jane Iredale, they are the original clean beauty brand. So I think they just had their 30-year anniversary this year.
Wow.
So Jane was a complete pioneer in the clean beauty space. I mean, the woman is incredible. She is British. She's super cool. I met her once and completely fangirled out over the whole situation. But she essentially started out as a casting director
Wow.
and created this clean line out of nowhere. um, in order to help people with their skin. And so it has grown and evolved significantly. It is a beautiful line, hundreds and hundreds of SKUs. And so I came on board as their manager of US sales and education. And essentially, what I did is my role was to oversee all of the in store support. So I had a team of 16 under me, and all of them were basically the people who were boots on the ground. They were the regional makeup artists who were in store doing makeovers. Basically training people and further evangelizing the vision of this brand. So I was really fortunate to be in that position. And then COVID hit.
Of course. Of course.
And the whole world shifted.
Yeah.
And so I was in the unique position of taking my team of 16 and trying to give them tasks to do at home, because at the time, we couldn't touch people's skin. Obviously, we couldn't use makeup brushes.
Of course.
Um, we had to have everyone throw away all of their retail displays and start over,
Oh my
because we didn't know how it was transmitted and how to clean things. And sanitization was like a very top of mind, topic of discussion when it came
right.
to like webinars that we did and whatever. So, inevitably, unfortunately, in March of 2020, my whole team, including myself, were all let go. So there were about 75 people who were affected.
Wow.
And I had a 1-year old at home. So, I was busy having his Zoom birthday party and like hanging out with him, which in retrospect, I think was like the perfect age to have a kid during COVID, because
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about like homeschool and all of that stuff. We were able to, just play and be, which was great.
Yeah.
Um, and so a couple months later, literally, well, it was May. So 2 months later, I got a phone call, and the company actually hired me back. I was the second employee that had been laid off that was brought back. They
Wow.
brought back me and one salesperson, and they said, we're bringing you back really to help us build out our e-learning platform. We really want to promote virtual learning however we can. So at the time, we were doing like, I don't know, 5 or 6 webinars a week.
God.
Because
Wow.
that was the only way that we were able to engage people. We were hosting virtual events for people online in order to try to sell through inventory. So it was a little nuts. And then eventually, I was promoted to global director of education for the brand. I was able to rehire a team, my team of 8. And then we also brought all of those contracted makeup artists in house, and we built out our Clean Beauty Artist program,
Mhm.
which was about 130 artists or so that also were a part of my division. So, um, awesome role. I loved it very, very much. During COVID, I also got pregnant with my second son. And so, we also experienced some other shifts in our family. And so I had to inevitably take a little bit of time off. And so after that point, I went to a trade show. And I was just kind of like trying to get a sense of what was going on in the industry. I had been attending this same trade show for about 15 years or so. And
Which one was it? I'm curious.
oh, it was IECSC.
Yeah. Okay. I remember you telling me about that show, and I was saying how crazy it is that we've been doing that show for so long and never ran into each other. But
I know.
crazy
It is
because it's so big.
crazy. It is so crazy. So yeah, I was just like meandering around. And I ended up like in the small brands aisles. Cause like you have like the big brands aisles, and then
Yeah,
you have the small
the
brands
small
aisles.
ones. Yes, yes.
Yes. And so I walked by this gentleman, and he said, "What are you looking for? Is there anything I can assist you with?" And I said, "Actually, I'm looking for a job." And he said, "Well, it just so happens that I have one. What are you interested in?" And so it turns out that that guy is my now boss. His name is Steve Salzinger, and he is an incredible person. And so that's that story. That is how I came to Rescue MD. So um, we are an incredible brand. I'm really happy to be a part of it. And I'm excited to kind of share more.
Yes, I cannot say this enough. Like anybody listening to your background, your experiences, your story, just blown away, completely blown away. You have so much experience, you have so much knowledge, and I love how you started off really in the trenches. Like I think that all of beauty, the entire industry really starts, this is my personal opinion, in the spa, salon, medi spa arena where we're touching people's skins and dealing with their concerns and really helping them and finding products that are going to help them. And you were in that and like learning about your freckles and people saying, oh, you can't be in this space, and you powering through all that. It's unbelievable. So first of all, I've told you this many times, but I'm completely blown away by you. Amazing. And your story really brings us to the point that we want to talk about today, is like the power of storytelling in developing a brand and putting out a brand, and how storytelling lends itself to the success of a brand. So tell us a little bit about Rescue MD, what it's all about, how it came to be, and then we can touch upon how Rescue MD really owns that storytelling piece.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for all the compliments. I'm absolutely beaming. It's always, nice to hear. I think we don't often get the opportunity to kind of regale the tales of how our career began.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun to look back on that time. And I've been incredibly fortunate to work in so many different arenas, even within the beauty space, medical, holistic, clean. So it's all kind of fed into where we are now. So Rescue MD. So Rescue MD is it's a skincare brand. It is a medical brand. It was actually started by Dr. Michael Sussman, who is a board certified plastic surgeon. He works in the greater New York area. He's actually one of the heads of West Med, which is a medical group up there. And he has worked on, I mean, hundred thousands of patients
Wow.
over the entirety of his career. And what he found was that he unfortunately didn't have kind of that perfect product to apply to his patient's skin post procedure. And so the brand was really created honestly out of necessity, because he couldn't really find that thing that he wanted to utilize that would create the perfect environment for the skin to thrive. So that in addition to years of clinical research and evidence backed ingredients, is really where like the hero, the star product, which is DNA repair complex, really came to fruition. And then that kind of founding challenge that he started with is how we now formulate the brand today. So it's all about, just really supporting the overall health of the skin and body, and creating kind of like the perfect environment for it to thrive. The other piece of that is that Rescue MD is the first and only brand to utilize an ingredient and a technology called Lapicol. Lapicol, like alcohol, comes from the Lapicoa tree. It's a botanical ingredient. It's a bark extract, and it's actually been used for decades as a homeopathic remedy. And the reason is because it's a really potent anti redness, antifungal, anti inflammatory agent. So that also is used throughout the line as well. Um, the line was created in 2021, so it's also a pandemic baby.
I
We
have
could talk
one,
more
you
about
have
that.
one, the brand is one, and many pandemic babies out there.
Exactly, exactly. And I have been with the brand now for a little over a year and a half. So I'm also new to the line.
Amazing. That's so great because I think that the brands that do very well are ones that do come about out of necessity. There's some sort of gap in the market, there's some space that hasn't been covered yet, and then someone with a wealth of experience and knowledge or a great passion for helping people in a certain way will come up and either reinvent the wheel with some new groundbreaking formula or just do something that already exists but better.
Yes.
And I think that it's amazing that Rescue MD found that place that, necessitates products to help repair the skin and hone in on that natural ability of the skin to repair itself. What do you think resonates with Rescue MD's audience about their story? Like, how does the brand do a great job at telling over their story and making sure that it's clear to the consumer?
Yeah, so I think it's actually an easier one than other lines I've worked with. And the reason is so our DNA repair complex is truly a multifunctional product. So I mentioned it was initially created to be used post procedure. It's also really, really beneficial for burns, bug bites, redness. We recently garnered the prestigious seal of acceptance for the National Rosacea Society on our hero product,
Wow.
because it's so good for treating redness in the skin. So as far as storytelling goes, I think it's an easy one to really connect to an audience with because we can all relate, right? We all get burns. We all get sunburns. We all, I mean, hopefully not too frequently, but we all injure ourselves, our children injure themselves. So it's really, and I think it's important when you're crafting a story of a brand that you give the audience the opportunity to see themselves visually and then also through speech in the story that you're telling. So it's easy to do that. So many of our before and afters and reviews really showcase improvement in people who've experienced things like airbag burns from car accidents, or we had actually one of the most impactful was a nurse who had to wear a mask during COVID and obtained a staph infection on her
Oh my
cheek.
gosh.
And we were able to, heal that within a number of weeks, just with our DNA repair complex.
Wow.
Um, we've gotten so many, incredible reviews from people. A gentleman who had really bad pseudofolliculitis, if you're familiar with that skin concern. So it's basically like really, really bad shaving bumps.
Mhm.
Um, and, he wrote the most compelling message to us about how DNA repair complex has changed his life because post shaving, now he has the perfect solution. And it was honestly a really bad clinical condition for him. So I think images and then also to answer your question, I think consumer stories are a great way for us to tell our story, but through a different lens.
Yeah.
And then we, of course, have that kind of medical plastic surgeon piece interwoven throughout that kind of gives credibility to the brand as well.
Right, right. What an amazing opportunity to have those aha moments where you know that you're really helping people. Like we have it here all the time, especially with acneic patients, where their acne is so debilitating. They don't want to go out, they don't want to do anything. And then they'll work with our products and they have clear skin and they have this like renewed confidence and just feel so much better about themselves. And you're like, wow, I helped you in that way. I think it's amazing when you have those opportunities. It's so rewarding.
Yeah.
Um,
And in truth, that is why I do what I do every day.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think it's funny you were talking about your background where you were kind of considering like the medical profession and I had that too. I wanted to become a doctor and I was really passionate about helping people and I was so boxed into thinking that there was only one way to help people, but then
Yes.
through my career and development, I came to this position where I am able to help people in another way, and I'm really grateful for those moments where you feel like you've just bettered somebody's life in some way. It's
Yeah.
and my whole premise is like it's not just superficial. Like beauty is way more than just about how you look on the outside. It's a lot about how you feel on the inside and then how that allows you to present yourself to the world.
Absolutely, you are speaking my language. I honestly, I tell that story all the time because people always kind of refer to the beauty industry as being superficial, skin deep, we're only affecting the outward appearance, everybody is fake. But in truth, different skin conditions affect so many different people. And if you're able to, I think what makes the aesthetic side unique, um, and this is my own personal contention, is that feeding the skin and nurturing it from the inside out is the most important thing that you can do. So, if we're talking about things like internal wellness supplements and healthy eating and exercise, that makes so much more of an impact. And then, even as a non medical professional, we're still able to give that kind of preventative lens so
Yeah.
that the medical professionals have less things to fix in the future.
Yes, yes. Prevention is always the first place to start. I agree with you 100%. 100%. So when our clients come to us and they're really looking to create a brand for themselves and go out with products that they love, it usually starts from a similar passion as to what you and I are describing. They see a need in the market, or they feel really passionately about healing something, some sort of skin ailment, and they want to present their own products and have their own name on it. What do you think are the most common pitfalls when a brand is just starting out in crafting their story and in how they present their brand to the world? What are things to kind of look out for?
Well, firstly, I think a lack of transparency, especially in today's market, is a big, huge no no. I think you always have to be transparent about ingredients that you're using, testing that you're doing, before and afters, even if you're just presenting beautiful beauty shots to the public, of, young women in their 20s, for example. Like, that's not a very realistic depiction of what the entirety of the industry looks like.
Right.
Um, I think a lot of people kind of glorify the founder stories too. And honestly, I think the most compelling brands are the ones where they tell you the nitty gritty, right? These are the struggles that I experienced. This is how I got through it. Even in starting a brand, So in the beauty industry during COVID time, we went through a shift where everyone had been going into offices and they had to stay home. And at home, we saw how they lived. We saw their kids. We saw their spouses. We
Yeah.
saw the struggles that they were experiencing every day. And in my opinion, that made things all that much better because and not even in beauty, right? Like, we just learned about what other people experience, and
Yeah.
it brought us closer together, I think, as a culture and a community. And
Yeah.
so
It
excuse me.
humanized everybody. Like it just, everyone was not like a piece in the workplace anymore. Like everyone had a life outside of work, and it just allowed us to be more understanding and a little more patient, I think.
Exactly. But I also think that that comes into play when we're talking about a brand story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those little nuances, those little difficult challenges that we face on a daily basis are the most interesting and compelling things about us.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what we do, it's why we do what we do and who we are.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. I think that's so powerful. And it brings us to our next topic, is building resilience today. There are so many brands that are popping up, and there's a lot of noise, and everyone's trying to do something new, and there's so many experts out there about every topic. So, we have to question, okay, I want to start a brand and I feel really passionately, and I'm going to perfect my I'm going to perfect my story. But now, how am I going to last? How am I going to thrive in an industry where there's so much competition? I mean, skincare in and of itself, just anti-aging skincare, are the most competitive words you could put out there in the beauty industry. So I'm curious to know, once you have your story, it's crafted, it's out there, what is going to help you build resilience and continue to thrive in the market?
Absolutely. Well, firstly, I know I mentioned this earlier, but Rescue MD was launched during COVID times. So I like to think of us as
Very
like
brave.
the most resilient brand.
Yeah.
During a time when people were getting laid off, I was getting laid off, and beauty brands were closing, right, and furloughing people. This is a brand that actually launched and became highly successful. So I think that that really comes from a number of different places. I have to say, my boss, our CEO, um, came from an investment background, and so he's incredible with the whole fundraising, capital raising, the startup side of things, asking for help. We're incredibly creative. So we have a little tiny team. It's very, very small. We communicate on a daily basis, sometimes a lot more than that. And I think it's that we might have a small hive, but it's that hive mind that really has gotten us through, because we can't all be experts at everything.
Yeah.
But when we come together and we are collaborative, we're able to kind of see the bigger picture a little bit better. So, positive thinking, I think, is a huge one.
Yeah, for sure.
And then one thing that I have to say, that I think my boss is so great at is, and maybe it's because he comes from an investment background, but he's really good at knowing when to hold back.
Mm,
So you don't always have to launch and be, a $5 million brand in your first year. Chances are you're not going to do that.
right.
But if you're doing things slowly, you're allocating funds for specific things, and then, growing over time, really doing your research, listening to what professionals and consumers and anybody who is touching your product, influencers, what they want to know, and what they need out of a brand, then chances are you're going to be able to create that a little bit easier.
Yeah, I love everything that you just said because when we consult with our clients, that's what we say. We say, you know, understand who you are. Who are you going to be speaking to? Who is your audience and what do they need? What are they struggling with? And then when you present that to them, you know, figure out what's your budget, um, what kind of steps are you going to take to grow steadily? You don't have to put it all out there overnight. You don't have to swallow the whole ocean. Like baby steps, and then learn as you go, get feedback, get constructive criticism. Don't be too defensive and implement what you're learning to help you perfect your brand and perfect your story
Yes.
and be more authentic.
Yes, absolutely. Rome wasn't created in a day.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And I think, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, take your time, be purposeful, and experiment. I think one thing that Rescue MD has done beautifully is a lot of market research. We are constantly doing surveys with our customer base, and we're always trying to garner as much information as we can about how to provide the greater population with the products and the goods that they need in a way that is easily accessible to them.
Yeah, I think when you're serving a purpose and you're very clear about that purpose, it's easy to stay on track, which sounds like Rescue MD is extremely clear on what they're here to do and what their mission is. So I feel like that really keeps you in line and allows you not to get confused or, maybe engage in opportunities that don't make sense for your brand, but it helps you stay focused when you understand your why.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
I think you're doing a great job. Um, and I want to touch a little bit about authenticity. You mentioned something where you said, transparency is key today, especially now more than ever. Tell me a little bit more about that and how you feel like brands are making headway in the market with being more transparent, or times that you've noticed brands haven't been as transparent as they need to be, and it's maybe hurt them somewhere along the way.
Yeah. So I don't know how to break this to you, but we are essentially in an industry of lies and BS. And
I'm over
so one
here.
one thing that I have always said is that, I will only represent brands. I will only speak to brands, and I will only work for brands that I truly believe in. The majority of my experience has been in education, and the job of someone in education is to really evangelize the vision of a brand. And if you don't believe in what a brand is doing, then chances are, it's not going to come off as authentic. And it's important to be authentic in what you do. And so that I think is like rule number one in the industry is like learn how to look past all of that, all of the marketing story, all of the branding, all of the packaging, and see, what a brand truly represents. But in addition to that, I think part of what Rescue MD does is that we showcase the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mentioned this earlier, but we don't just use pretty images. Some of the images that we use are pretty, but we also have some really great before and afters, and some of them are not pretty. But it's important to kind of see what the reality of the product can do is. Um, Another thing I think that we do really effectively is that we work with some of the top physicians in the aesthetic space in the US.
Mhm.
Whether that's, even on a PR level, we do a ton. And this is something that I have to commend our leadership for is that we do a ton of clinical trials.
Mhm.
So w- some of them are successful, some of them are not, but we know, what the product is doing, how it's doing it, and, we can really be confident in making these claims because we know that that's what's happening. And I think that that is a big trend that we're seeing in beauty right now is really tapping into industry professionals in any way possible to add credibility and then also to kind of validate some of the claims made by a brand,
Right.
um, so that it's a little bit easier to digest by a consumer. Because most of the time, if you're working with a lab, and I'm sure you can speak to this, um, the raw materials or the ingredients that you're using, chances are they do have clinicals behind them. But if you are working with physicians to really nail down on how those raw materials and ingredients are working together within the entirety of a formula, even going as far as how that product is dispensed and how it absorbs in the skin, all of those things really play into how efficacious the product is, and that to me is kind of like the number one rule for authenticity.
I could not agree with you more because, we do a lot of private label, but we also do a lot of custom formulation. And the number one thing we always advise our clients is when you create a new formula, you need to study that formula and you need to know if it's actually doing what you set out to do. So you have to run clinical tests. You have to substantiate the claims that you're making. And that speaks to the authenticity part. You cannot just say, oh, your wrinkles will be gone in 2 weeks and not have
Yeah.
any data to back that up. People today more than ever are going to see through that, and brands that don't have that authenticity are going to get lost in the competitiveness. You really need to know what your product is doing, and the only way to verify is to go through those clinical tests. So
Yes, and it's expensive. I'm
mhm.
not saying it's not expensive.
Right.
It's very expensive, it's very time consuming, but, I think that that is, like, one of the biggest parts of our budget, honestly, at Rescue MD, and having that validated information, those clinicals, it's just it's huge.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really huge.
Of course. You've given us so much insight, like valuable pieces of knowledge. We spoke about building resilience. I mean, Rescue MD being launched during COVID speaks to the brand's resilience already, but any brand on any given day will face its challenges. And just having a collaborative mindset and understanding that the challenges are part of the growth and taking things step by step, I think really are great pieces of advice that you've given. And of course, being transparent and authentic and making those investments that are going to give your brand more credibility. I mean, everything that we've touched on today is so valuable, and you've broken it down so beautifully for our listeners. I just want to thank you very, very much.
Thank you. It's been such a joy.
I want to ask you if you were to be confronted by someone who's like, I feel so passionately about this. I want to start my own brand. I need advice. What are the top three things you would tell them to do, like right off the bat?
Ooh, um, I think firstly, I would tell them to find their key points of differentiation. So, what who are your competitors, right? What is it that you want your brand to say? How do you want it to come across? Um, I would say, what's kind of like your channel for raising capital? Because that I think is a huge part of it.
Very important.
Um, and then you know, what does growth and success look like for you? Because I think that we all have different interpretations of what it means to be successful, both personally and from a brand standpoint. So, are you successful if your brand is in Sephora? Are you successful if your brand is utilized by your friends? I mean, what is it that you're trying to accomplish?
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Knowing and understanding your purpose. Okay, so I've prepared some rapid fire questions that I want to ask you. I'm going to ask you questions and just give me the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
Okay, I'm in the hot seat. I'm
Yes,
ready.
exactly. Okay. Here we go. What's one word that describes the Rescue MD brand?
Ooh, I'd say multifunctional. And the reason is that they're products for really any array of audiences. Like I said, it's product that supports aging skin, healthy skin, redness, bug bites, sunburns. We like to refer to this as the skinimalist. So it's like
Hmm.
the one product that does everything.
Yeah, very on trend for 2025. Multi-purpose products. A
Yeah.
brand you think is killing it right now, of course, besides Rescue MD.
Oh, well, I mean, I have to give credit to Rhode. I feel like Hailey Bieber has done an amazing job with that.
Yeah.
We certainly are seeing it everywhere. And then more of like the physician developed brands like Prequel is doing really, really well, I think, in the market right now. Naturium that was created by a beauty a beauty editor
Yeah.
is also killing it.
Amazing.
There's so many though.
There are. There are. What's a branding trend you think is overrated?
I'd say being reliant on packaging.
Mm,
I mean, I may be the exception, but I am totally that person that turns the package over and scans the ingredients. I think consumers are becoming more and more savvy. And so they can really see past something that's just, a beautiful primary and secondary packaging.
oh my gosh, I agree so much. Your favorite social media platform for connecting with customers?
TikTok! Just
Yeah.
kidding. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about TikToks anymore. Um, I would say Instagram. I mean, I connect with our customers every day on Instagram. Our professionals reach out to me that way. We all like communicate readily on Instagram. It's almost like a second email.
Yeah,
So yeah, I use it frequently.
awesome. Yeah, I'm finding that too. I feel like a lot of brands go to Instagram for their communication, which is kind of nice. If Rescue MD had a theme song, what would it be?
So can I just say I love this question because that is always my question for everyone is what's your theme song or
I
like your
love it.
walk song or your motivational song? So I want to hear what your song is in just a
My
second. But
song. Oh my gosh, I never thought. Mm, this is tough. Do you
okay,
know the
so
Whitney Houston song, "I wanna dance with somebody"? That's my vibe.
do I ever? Yes.
That's mine.
That's your we're a dancer.
I'm a dancer.
Um
I love dancing.
so my personal theme song is She's a Bad Mamma Jamma by Carl Carlton.
Ooh,
Do
I
you know that
love
one?
it.
She's a bad mamma jamma. As fine as she can be. But,
That's a
the
good one.
song for yeah, the song for Rescue MD, I would say is, "Stronger" by Britney Spears, and
Ooh,
the reason the reason is really twofold because, Again, we're a new brand. We're kind of like a startup brand, so we are strong, but then also stronger because we're strengthening damaged skin. So
I love that. I love
there you
that. So
go.
good. Two amazing songs. Okay, ready for some personal ones?
Okay.
Coffee or tea during a brainstorming session?
Oh, 100% tea.
Ooh,
I green tea mostly, either iced, hot, matcha, whatever. I love green tea.
tea.
So,
Okay.
big tea drinker.
Big tea. Okay. Your go-to mantras or quote for tough days?
I'd say feel the fear and do it anyway. I think there's so many things that we're often afraid of and that can really hold us back. So you just got to take the plunge and go for it.
I love that. Yes. What's one skincare product you can't live without? Oh, I love this question.
Uh, Obviously, Rescue MD DNA Repair
Obviously.
Complex.
You had it handy too.
I don't know.
Dream celebrity you'd want as a Rescue MD ambassador?
Okay, this one's really, really difficult. So I have a list of three. So
Okay.
first of all, Pamela Anderson, because
Mm,
I love what she's doing with like just owning her skin, and we want her skin to look its very best
yeah.
without makeup.
Yeah.
Um, Zendaya, I think her skin is just absolutely gorgeous, and
Yeah.
she's great for that kind of like younger demographic. And then Nicole Kidman, I mean,
Ooh.
I think she's had some things done, but absolutely our products complement that really well as well.
Yes. Oh, I love that. It's a great list. It's a really great list. You never know. Could happen. If you could describe your career journey as a movie genre, what would it be?
I would say dramedy.
I think that's the perfect way to describe it.
So,
Wow.
definitely a drama. A lot of crazy things have happened, but it really is that ability to kind of like see things from a lighter lens, stay positive, and laugh that gets us through all of the dark times.
Yeah. And my last question for you that I'm super passionate about, and I feel like I could talk to you about for hours, for all of those brand creators, entrepreneurs, spa salon owners that are juggling their work life with the home life and trying to keep everything running well, what piece of advice do you have for them?
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna put my inspirational hat on. um, I think this is so cliche, but you either win or you learn. There's no lose. There is no failure. Don't be afraid of failure because some of those failures end up being the biggest lessons. And, you really kind of like learn your next steps as you go. So, yeah, I'd say that that's my biggest encouragement is just keep going.
Yes.
Just keep swimming.
Yes.
Just Nemo it.
That's my song in my head all day long. I'm like on a call and my kids are in the background. I'm like, just keep going, just keep going.
Keep swimming.
Yes, that's so beautiful. I cannot thank you enough for all of the advice, all of the expert knowledge, and your passion that you've brought to our listeners, to what you do every day at Rescue MD. I think we can learn so much from you, and I'm really excited to see what you do in the future, what the brand does, and have all those celebrity endorsements coming your way. But thank you, Amy, so, so much.
Thank you again for having me. It was so much fun, and I learned so much about you as well. So I look forward to the next one.
Yeah. If you like what you've heard here, please like and subscribe. You can leave a comment if you have any questions for myself or for Amy. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Beauty Beneath Podcast, and YouTube and LinkedIn under Spa de Soleil. And until next time, remember, it's not just skincare, it's a skin lifestyle.